the impact of the hours of service change will be 2 to 5.
Regulatory issues in freight transportation. Well, joining us to speak about that today is Tom Sanderson, CEO of Transplace. Tom, welcome.
Thank you, Russell.
Tom, I know that you are concerned about regulation of the transportation industry. You've talked about it. In fact, you're speaking about it here at the WERC conference. Give us the overall view of what's going on there, the 50,000-foot view, if you would, and why shippers should be concerned about it, what they can do about it.
Okay, thank you. There are a number of regulatory initiatives, all of which are going to serve to reduce the effective capacity of the trucking industry by reducing trucking productivity and increase the cost of trucking. There's already an upcoming capacity shortage as the over-the-road truckload driver demographic ages, and we face that shortage. But compounding that are these regulatory initiatives that are going to reduce the effectiveness of the capacity that is still on the road. And so what shippers have to do is change their logistics strategies so that they're not caught short when the capacity shortage hits.
Let's assume that the hours of service regulation is going to go into effect in July. The impact of that as you see it, what will it be?
We believe the impact of the hours of service change will be 2 to 5% of the effective capacity. Some carriers think it will be higher than that, and to some extent it depends on the exact type of the operation, but we think 2 to 5% is a reasonable range. But what that means is that we're going to need to find about an extra 100,000 truck drivers to make up for the reduction in effective utilization of the driver force that's already out there.
You know, one of the regulations out there, one of the initiatives is the use of CSA scores to select carriers. Number of proponents of that. You are a vocal opponent. Now give us your view. Why is it that you are not in favor of using those scores in that type of selection?
There are several reasons for that. First, there have been numerous studies which have shown that the scores have no correlation to accident frequency of carriers. So using those scores is not improving safety on our highways. Secondly, over half of the carriers that the FMCSA can find and measure have at least one of the CSA basics over the intervention threshold. So they've been marked as somehow being deficient in service. Well, we know the trucking industry has a tremendous record of reducing highway fatalities, reducing accidents per million miles. It doesn't make sense that over half of the industry would be flagged by this system. And the problem that a shipper gets into in using those scores is wherever you decide to set that bar, you will be questioned. If you say, I'm going to use carriers that have one alert but not two, or two alerts but not more, wherever you draw that line is then going to come into question. And how will you defend that? You simply won't have any way to defend that. You're better off relying on the federal government, the FMCSA, whose duty it is under federal law to determine which carriers are safe to operate on the highways. They should take those unfit carriers off the highway and not push that selection criteria onto the shipping community.
It's interesting, especially since there are a number of surveys and reports that indicate that a majority of the accidents that take place, when the driver error that is responsible for it, it's the driver is in an automobile. It's not the man that's in the cab of the truck.
It's absolutely correct. And yet, in the accident data that the FMCSA reports on their website, they make no effort to distinguish between those accidents where the carrier was at fault or not at fault. And it's completely unfair that a truck that's parked on the side of the highway, legally parked, and a drunk driver runs into the back of that. That affects the CSA score of that carrier, even though the carrier there was nothing that carrier could have done to prevent that.
Exactly. Let's talk about EOBRs now. There's any number of people who want to see that mandate as well. They're very much in favor of that. What's the effect of that? What's your view?
My view on EOBRs is that that does make a lot of sense. Most of the largest carriers have already adopted EOBRs. The use of a paper log, is fraught with errors. Does the driver fill it out right? It's got to be analyzed. And EOBR technology is now very affordable, and many carriers who utilize that data find that there is no impact on truck and driver utilization. In fact, some of the larger carriers have found by smarter dispatch, they're able to achieve a slightly higher level of utilization with the EOBR. So all in favor of it. However, while there is a mandate in the current highway bill to implement EOBRs, once that rulemaking won't be done until 2014, and then there will be 2 years, at least 2 years, for the carriers to adapt to that rule. So we're a long way off from the effective implementation of EOBRs, unfortunately.
You know, at the top of the interview, you mentioned capacity. As capacity tightens up, what's your view on intermodal viability of intermodal east of the Rockies?
We are huge proponents of intermodal east of the Rockies. Most of that freight moving from Los Angeles to Chicago or Los Angeles to New York, that's already moving intermodal. But the great opportunity is east of the Rockies, where with the improvements in rail infrastructure made by the Norfolk Southern and CSX railroads, allows solid intermodal performance that's the equivalent of single driver service in many lanes east of the Rockies. That's one of the best answers to the capacity shortage, is convert that freight from truck to intermodal. It saves cost, it reduces the impact of the driver shortage, and it's more environmentally friendly as well.
Well, great insight into how rules and regs are affecting the transportation industry. Tom, thank you so much for finding time to sit down and speak with us today.
Thank you, Russell.
Well, it's Tom Sanderson from Transplace, speaking with us today about regulatory issues in the freight transportation industry. Well, thank you for watching.